on you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spinning Rack. I'm here with Petey. Say what's up, Petey.
What up?
Say what's up, Cal.
Ready to rock.
Hey, and today we're talking about Ed Brubaker. He's made some pretty interesting comments lately in his newsletter. I'm gonna have Petey give us a quick synopsis of it. Petey, hit us with your stuff, Selector.
Well, we have Falcon and Winter Soldiers out for Disney Plus, and it's a big hit, and everyone's loving the first episode off the heels of WandaVision. And then we also, in the credits, we have all the people that were all the creators that had created these characters. But then we have we had to hear from Ed Brubaker. What did he think about it? And ultimately, it's a little bit of sour grapes. The saying that ultimately, as a creator of Winter Soldier, that all he's gotten thanks for what he did. If you can see on his blog, it's from the desk of Ed Brubaker, and then basically also some of the higher ups taking credit for the thing that he did. So he said not Tom Brevoort, and then he said he understands work for hire is what it is. But at the same time, this is something that was, the happiest times of his life, now showing up on film, and then him basically making no money off of it. And Marvel, this is a derivative character. This was a character created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, Bucky Barnes. It's not a different character. So ultimately, on the line of Disney, this would be not his creation. This is a derivative character, no different. This is why John Byrne, who created the White or Spectral Vision, got no credit for, designing this other version, any of the storylines of that. And at the same time, you don't see any complaints. That's mine. But understanding what work for hire is when you go into it, and that you're saying, I want this character. Many people have thought about doing that, bringing Bucky Barnes back. Even Roger Stern and Byrne had a story with, say, Chuck, and said, no, that's too, that would ruin the original story. But that's the thing. He has this issue, and we as fans. I mean, we had who's that? Dave Chappelle talking about not owning his show, the Chappelle Show, and somehow not making the deal right, so that it was all Comedy Central, and he got his money. He got some money out of Comedy Central. But do we think we should bend work for hire for Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting? What do you guys think? Cal, you had a strong point. Can you bring up that point of what you were saying about this?
It's like you can't have it both ways. You can't, this is work for hire, but I want money. And I think this is around circa the 1990s, especially when guys realized they could go to, say, Image Comics and do their own ideas there, and definitely make more money off manipulating their own IP there than if they were with Marvel or DC. So a lot of times you saw these writers, they were not creating any new characters. They wouldn't create any new characters. They would use an existing character and do a spin on him. So now, the Rawhide Kid would be gay, or Bucky Barnes gets brought back to life. But Marvel owns Bucky Barnes, lock, stock, and barrel. If you make Bucky Barnes the Winter Soldier, Marvel owns that. If you put Bucky Barnes in a dress and turn him, become the Peplum Man, Marvel still owns that at the end of the day. So you can't have it both ways, because Brubaker could have created a totally new character called the Winter Soldier. Okay, and with a lot of the same treatment that he had, this could have been like the anti-Captain America, if you will, and it probably would have sold. There's a lot of cool stuff about the Winter Soldier, aside of the fact that he was Cap's partner as Bucky Barnes. But these guys have decided, no, I don't want to do that. I want to keep my ideas with me in case, because I don't want these guys to have them. And they're like, oh, well, they have this one. And even though it's not necessarily my idea, and it is derivative of this character, and it is work for hire, I still should get some money. So you can't have it both ways. If you want to be in, you got to be in. You're out, then you're out.
Makes sense. I mean, look, I think that this is difficult, and I got to agree with Cal in a little sense here, but I also have to understand Brubaker's point of view. You know, when you have these characters that all of a sudden, you know, are making tens of millions of dollars, you can't say, hey, the creators, let's do a creator pot and throw $1 million amongst 4 or 5 of these guys, you know, to give them something. I mean, this is IP that becomes very valuable, and you know, it just, to me, just tends to be a shame that these guys who helped to develop many of the stories that are now being shown on the movies, or the character, how they're developed and stuff like that, they just get, you know, left behind. It's kind of sad. And you know, I see what you're saying, that, you know, they should have done original characters, but I don't think it really matters if they did original characters or not. You're still going to have this situation happen. You know, if you had an original character, probably you get what, 1.001 on that versus this.
Well,
But you would still get some money
that's the
because
thing.
you created this character, and this character is original. You decided, no, I don't want to create an original character, because if I do that, Marvel or DC owns the character, and I'm not going to be able to fully manipulate this character. So I'm not going to be like Alan Moore or Joe Shuster or Joe Simon or Jack Kirby. I'm going to completely own anything that I do. Fine.
How would he do Winter Soldier? I mean, let's say he wanted to create his own Winter Soldier. He'll do his own comic called Winter Soldier.
Yeah, he could just do his own comic, Winter Soldier. He could have the same design, everything, and he could just do that independent, say on Image or with his own comic, and that would be it at the end of the day, if he wanted to do that idea. Or you create that character with Marvel, understanding that Marvel is going to own the character, but if that character hits like in a movie or something, you've got some rights to it because you created it. Now, this is the same thing I have seen happen since Superman. Nobody ever thinks this character is going to become as big as the character becomes. You come over, you create Winter Soldier, it takes off in the comic, okay, everybody's fine. The second it goes to a movie, and now all of a sudden he's on TV and all this other type of stuff, people start catching feelings over it. They never think, they don't weigh both sides of the issue. Okay, they don't weigh both sides of the issue. If I keep this as my own, okay, and it hits, that's fine. But what if it hits on the other side? I'm not going to get a percentage of that either words. And it becomes, all right, you lock yourself into one or the other. If it works out one way, hey, great. You're like, what's his name with Walking Dead? If it doesn't, hey, why am I not getting any money? You can't have it both ways. You're in for a penny, in for a pound. And better to get 1% of the revenue than 0. And all you can do is talk and, you know, have people feel sorry for you, and then get on Twitter to try to make you into a cause. You know, the bottom line is you have to look at it from a business standpoint as well. I'm supposed to pay you, even though we have an agreement that you're not going to get paid. All right. You made this. You decided that you were not going to stake out any claim for this whatsoever. You know what you're doing. You're an adult. You signed a contract. That's your name. No problem. Now it's being manipulated and it's making more money, and you're going to have sour grapes about it. You know, come on. It's just ridiculous at the end of the day. And these guys know the business. That's one of the reasons why they don't want to create any new characters. You know, that's one of the reasons why they want to bring up characters from the 60s that have been forgotten and rejuvenate them, because they want to have manipulation of their own characters. Now, this character comes over here. I don't know. It just sounds really a little juvenescent at the end of the day for him to say that. You got to be happy about it, but you knew what you were doing when you did it. And now, okay, it's the same thing that happens on soap and being. I've seen this with Superman. I saw this with Alan Moore when it came to with the Watchmen. You know, the same thing with some of these some of the Marvel characters. I mean, even Jim Starlin said Jim Starlin gets money, but he says, well, I get more money. I got paid more money for the KG Beast, who wasn't even the KG Beast in Batman v Superman, than I did for Thanos. So, you know, the whole idea of, you know, the payouts is something that's always going to be discussed. But at some point, you have to be adult about it. You know what you're doing. You made your decision, okay? And you made your decision as you thought it would best suit yourself. It's now, you got to live with that decision. If you don't like it, okay. But at least try to be a little bit more adult about it when people ask you.
Well, one of the things that go back to what you were saying, Mars, you said 0.1% of 1%. And that's not really the case. If you understand what was going on in the 90s, which shifted how the Image guys, before they became Image, worked for Marvel, Rob Liefeld was like, you know what? I could get 4% of these characters I create. So the same as like Chris Claremont and the New Mutants getting 4%, him and Bob McLeod getting 4% of the New Mutants they created, John Byrne getting 4% of Alpha Flight, and then Rob Liefeld waking up and saying, going there and saying, I could get 4% for Deadpool. Know what I'm doing? I'm creating all these characters in New Mutants. And he kept creating these characters and the externals and all these guys and all this stuff, the Mutant Liberation Front and all this stuff. And he gets a percentage. And I'm pretty sure he kind of goes through his lawyer to keep that percentage going, because he said he's participated with them even when other artists said, hey, Marvel hasn't sent me a check up until the point that after the bankruptcy, after what's that thing? Disney took over. Like Disney pulled up. But at the same time, Jim Starlin has a state where there wasn't a 4% creative thing. When Epting is doing his thing, there was. So this Winter Soldier keeps blowing up, and he made him just some person from Cap's past that he backtracks and says in Cap's past, this is a friend, the other friend of his, not Bucky Barnes. Then you have this whole setup, and he said, oh no, just like the same thing in Hush. They created a new best friend for Bruce Wayne. That's a new character. So then it became a new villain. So you have something where he could have gotten a percentage, and then they would be eating off this instead of them just giving them the credit. They would be eating off this new character because there was money. Because you can see after Rob Liefeld started creating characters and saying, hey, this percentage thing is good. You see Jim Lee, Omega Red, Maverick, all these characters come out because it's like saying, I'm going to participate with this for the rest of my life, and then I'll create my own characters and make all this money. But they can still make money with Marvel. And that's the hard thing to remember, that the generation, way before this, the generation when we were growing up, you had the Millers and the Perez, Byrne, Walt Simonson, they were creating characters, and they were creating it before the percentage, but they understood what it was. So they don't sit around looking at the Dark Phoenix saga. How could they do this to me? Another Dark Phoenix cartoon. They're taking money out of my pocket. And it's like, no, they already knew all of the stuff, and they're just like, we just want to be in the business. We want to create characters like Stan and Jack did. Stan and Jack didn't know anything, like Stan didn't know anything. We want to be a part of it. We want to leave something in here for comics that'll be there that's long. And then at some point they created their own characters after that. Or, pretty much all of them. But it's understanding the business and not waking up and deciding. You think when Walt Simonson, he's getting a big share of Thor, when what was it? As any of his was Curse. I think Curse was one of the ones he created at that point. But we haven't seen, we've seen some hints of Baby Ray Bill and stuff like that. So, understanding it, being fair and understanding what the business is like, and sort of understanding what this is. Because it's not, he's got a lot of stuff out there, but it's like, then you go into it and say, hey, I got screwed. No, you don't have to say you got screwed, that sort of thing. I'll probably watch it at some point, but it kind of pains me when the execs don't even know. It's like, this was the editorial decree from from Joe Quesada or something like that. Joe Quesada created like some dummy who don't know anything. And he said, stop, they stole my idea. That sort of thing. So, they knew what, everyone knows they have vouchers that say that Marvel owns this thing. So, you can't just go into it being like, as Cal was saying, you can't go into it being like, hey, I got screwed like Schuster and Kirby did. Like, even some of them knew what they were doing. So.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, PD. I get that they know what they're doing, but there's just so much money being made off of it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
And
No, I don't know what you're trying to say.
No, I can't. He's like, they can share.
You can't to make sure that these guys are tied into what you're doing, and you make sure these guys say positive things about this. I'd be paying these guys $50,000 or $100,000.
No, you wouldn't.
Just to make sure that they kept happy.
Hold on. Look, just a second. I want to see your face again. Let me just make this bigger. Yeah, okay. Say that again. How much money?
I said
no. Move your hand. Yeah, okay. You don't have to say it. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
I'm saying the compassionate person in me. Yeah,
you'd give them $100,000 if you were making like $1 billion. You'd be like, here's a. No, you wouldn't do that. You'd be like the $10,000 check. Here you go. Here's 10 grand.
Look,
Sign
so
this.
I would look. I get
Where
what
do
you're
you
saying.
stop at though?
I'm-
What price do you stop at when you say that they need to participate? Do you do a 50?
No, I didn't say they didn't. They signed it away. But as an organization, I would say, hey, throw them a bone. Do a
No,
consulting for them to
no,
do a consulting for this particular project. To make sure that when they talk to people, they're saying positive things about it. You know what I'm trying to say?
no.
know,
You don't get a bone. You don't get anything because you knew what the deal. You can't do this for people. You can't come over and everybody's got a hard luck story or a sad sack story. You knew what the deal was. You were coming in. You were making these stories. You decided to make this. You knew what the situation was. If you made these characters, you were going to get a percentage. You decided, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do it this way. And he's not alone. That's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of new villains created or new characters created, because these guys want to keep it for themselves, because they're like, oh, I can go over here. And they're always thinking, well, look, if you're independent, you make your own book. Let's say you made your own book, Winter Soldier, and you're selling like, I don't know, let's say 3,000 copies a month. That's still a lot of money in comparison, okay, to what you'd be doing with the other guys, if it was your own character at the end of the day. So you're like, okay, my own character, I can definitely, make that in the short term. But nobody's ever thinking, hey, this is Marvel at this point. And mind you, when the Winter Soldier came out, there was none of this stuff going on with the TV shows and the films. And again, nobody was thinking like that. Everybody was like, I need to keep this for myself. Nobody was thinking, well, what happens if this thing hits? Or with Marvel? No. The whole idea was to maintain ownership. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's not. These guys are in a position where, okay, maybe you outsmarted yourself. Okay, or you didn't cover yourself at the end of the day. You got a guy like Ryfield who was like, how much? I'm creating like 15,000 characters. I'm going to create all these characters. Why? Because, hey, I can get a percentage. And the bottom line is, if these guys hit, no problem. I'll still do my own stuff. But while I'm here, I'm going to create as much as I can cover myself. That's not what you did. Now to come back and say, oh, well, the Winter Soldier is this, that, and the other. And, well, I had a hand in creating it. Would you even be saying this stuff if the Winter Soldier didn't hit? If the Winter Soldier was one of these villains that they use in the movie and, never made it, okay, like, to be honest, like Curse or Malik, if at the end of the day where I was disappointed in, would you be saying anything? No, you'd probably just have to go with the rating. Everybody would just think it's a throwaway character. So the only reason why you're saying anything now is because the character hit. But you didn't think this character was going to hit when you made the character, or else you would have participated. And that's the thing, though. If you want some of the money, you got to participate. You got to be willing to put it into the universe, okay, and put this idea of yours into the universe and not hedge your bet. You got to fully participate. You didn't want to fully participate, so you got paid for what you did, and that's it. Now, if the coder can tell the guy who's making all the money, oh, you need to give him some money. It's like, well, I don't understand. Like Petey said, when does it stop? How much money do I get? I got to pay you for what you said you wanted, and then I got to pay you again? Why?
Well, when you say that, that's the other thing you have to look at is the comparison. If Cal is right, and they will be bringing in a actual female superhero in Ricky Barnes, the wasn't the Rob Liefeld Bucky. Will Rob Liefeld be making more money than Ed Brubaker?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So this is where the gray area is in this sort of thing, where what's fair and what's not fair. But what can you do? The thing is that it could have been a character, but it means as a writer, you're like, what would make the Winter Soldier even more compelling? What if he was actually Bucky? And then the readers will get into it and say, oh, so Bucky's actually alive. And then next thing you know, it's like, well, if it wasn't, they're like, it's just some old villain. I don't know who that is. But you wanted to push.
If he really thought about it, he didn't have to necessarily make him Bucky. He could have made him a clone of Bucky, and he'd have more. He would still have, that would still be, hey, it's not it wouldn't be a derivative of Bucky. Okay, he could still make a complete argument. This is a clone, new character, this, that, and the other. So you could have hedged your bet, but I mean, I don't understand the whole thing. I mean, look, Liefeld's going to end up making money off Ricky Barnes, and nobody ever thought that character was going to amount to much, at the end of the day. But you cover your bet if that's what you're doing. If you just want to be in it and you want, I mean, like me, if they came to me and say, hey, you want to write some stories? I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I would create all this stuff because I would just be so happy to do it at the end of the day. And then if I get some money, hey, that's a plus. But if you're thinking, well, I want to make certain I don't get shafted, I want to make certain that I get money for this stuff at the end of the day, then you got to hedge your bet. That means you got to do some stuff for the Marvel universe, and that's got to be given to the Marvel universe so you can get something. If you're going to keep everything for yourself, then don't expect it at the end of the day. Like I don't know if Ed Brubaker was on I don't know if he was on Daredevil at the time, but they created this new character called Lady Bullseye. Okay, there's a very good chance that Lady Bullseye is going to get picked up. Lady Bullseye is going to get picked up as a character eventually for Daredevil. Now, that's a new character. That's a totally new character. He'll get paid for that. And then when he gets paid for that, we have to, is he going to come out and then say, well, I still wish I got money for Winter Soldier, but you didn't participate with that character.
Yeah. It's a tough thing to be in, but at the same time, it's something that you don't go into blindly. It's not something that you don't know that if I create this, and I'm pretty sure he got money for the whatever for the comic books and reprint fees. But then when you look at the TV show, you're kind of smart and being like, oh gosh, look at them. They're just taking money from our pocket. Like, no, actually, no. That's the hard part is looking at it and say, all these other guys that came back in the comic books, the X-Men alone, how many creators and villains and other new mutants that have been popping up in those characters. And it's like, I'm pretty sure outside of page rate and reprint fees, Chris Claremont gets basically that after, but some of those things created past 83 or something like that, he probably collected a little more than that for those things. So that's one of the things that you have to look at to say that they did do a creative participation thing. DC is different because DC has been with, despite any negative thing people said about Paul Levitt in the past, as a creator at DC and Warner Brothers, I'm not sure if they're sticking to it with AT&T being involved. They kind of tried to keep people getting money and this type of stuff. The deals that they made with Kirby, even before in '84 when he was doing his going back to the New Gods, '84, '85, it was kind of being nice where they didn't have to pay him anything for those reprints. But they also said, hey, if you do some new stuff, this, that, and the other, we can get you some royalties when they reprint, and we can get you, when we do these toys, you get some money off of the toys. I think they say that in the Sean Howe book, the Marvel book. I think that they say that Stan didn't really get a real his first royalty was on the Kiss magazine that Marvel did, because it was outside of Marvel. Otherwise, it was just his editorial rate and his comic book, his whatever page rate for writing. So it's not till much later, the couple comics he did, which probably like Ravage, but I'm pretty sure that didn't make enough money to get him a big royalty. It's not too much later where Stan even got a royalty from what he did, or a definite creator percentage. When he sued Marvel, he sued them as exec producer and money that wasn't paid to him as exec producer. He didn't sue as I'm creator of Marvel, and they made a deal with him. And that's the other thing that you can do. But that's being at Marvel for umpteen years,
I'm glad you said that. Even Stan Lee had to sue to get his money. Even Stan Lee had to sue to get his money. So, and this is Stan Lee.
Era, or was this after the Goodman era?
Huh?
Wait,
the Goodman era or after the Goodman era?
What, when he sued?
Yeah.
He sued like when the more movies were coming out. When he
Well, he wasn't suing before when he was a Goodman, because I don't think anybody thought that as a editor that he would be
no, he was editor. No, he was, when they sold Marvel, it was outside of them wanting to keep Stan, he wasn't gaining anything outside of his being editor and being lead editor and writer. That's what his money was. And when Cadence, it was Cadence, when they came in, they wanted Stan, and Stan wanted to be publisher. And the person selling, was it Martin Goodman, wanted to sell but keep his son in there. And they're like, we'll buy, but your son can't be in there. Stan, we want Stan in there. Stan wasn't there for the day-to-day stuff, but as publisher, he was publisher, and then he became, Publisher emeritus or something like that, or creator emeritus, that sort of thing. So, or maybe however you pronounce that. So that's one of the things that you can say. All that time, there's no suit, no fight. This that 70s, he gets royalty for doing the Kiss magazine that he did with Marvel, and then probably some creative percentage of Ravage. I can't think of anything else in the 80s that he created. So it's like it's not till all that time being exec producer and then saying the big money's coming in, Stan, it's coming, we're in profits, oh no, we haven't figured the profits out yet, we're kind of in the we're still up things. And he had the suit.
And the thing is, nobody ever thinks, even after all the stuff that stands there, and he sees how these characters take off. And you go through forget the 60s, you go through the 70s, you get to the 80s, you see the TV shows and so on and so forth. And it's amazing because everybody still thinks this stuff is disposable, despite the fact that it maintains for such a long period of time. The comics are still going. You got you have books over here on this. There's a lot of stuff that's being manipulated. It's not just the comics. You got the comics, you have books, you have trades. Okay, you have a lot of audio. At some point, you got the strips in the paper. There's a lot of stuff that's actually going on, and everybody still treats it like it's disposable. Like somehow this is all gonna just dry up overnight. So hey, no big deal. Nobody ever thinks, hey, it's gonna get me bigger, or we're gonna get more people in. Even though progressively you can see it getting bigger. You definitely get the wind out of your sails with the implosion that happened in the 90s, but everybody was in for that. Everybody knew that everybody was selling like there was no tomorrow, and they knew that was going to come down the pike. Everybody was complicit in that. I don't hear anything different to that. They were all going for the money. They knew good and well there was not as many readers as there, but they were happy to take that money, and then they started moaning with, oh no, what's going to happen to the comics? So here's what's going to happen. You're going to lay off a bunch of people, and you're going to, shore up some money. But even then, he's working on, you see him film like Blade, and you would think a guy with enough vision, I'm not necessarily talking about Stan Lee, but a guy with enough vision is going to say, hey, this can happen again. You got a universe and all these other type of stuff. Things can happen. And so you try to shore yourself up, or you try to make certain, hey, I want to make certain that I get some money for this whole thing. And you have a history of seeing this stuff do it, if only in Superman, when nobody wanted that. What is it? Siegel just couldn't sell that character. He couldn't sell that character for years, and finally gets put up and it explodes. Nobody thinks about it, that it's going to explode to that. And even then, even now, you still have people like, oh, well, I'm not going to hedge my bet and make certain that I can get some money on these properties one way or the other. No. I'm going to go full tilt one way or full tilt the other way. I don't care. I just want to do it for the fun. I just want to do it for the love. Wait a minute. It's making how much money? Where's my money? It's like, no, if you're going to go through with it, you have to look at the whole aspect. Definitely have fun with the creative part and doing what you love, because I don't know anybody who writes comic books who haven't wanted to do that for years. That's like a dream of theirs, and enjoy that aspect of it. But if you're going to come later on with sad sex story, but I'm not getting any money, then also look at the business side of it as well. And the business side of it is not just, make certain that I keep stuff for myself that I can manipulate, but also make certain that I have some involvement and some participation with this stuff. So if these guys are going to be able to manipulate a character much further than I'm ever going to be able to do it, they've got the money. So make certain that I'm also participating in the larger aspect of it as well. So I can get paid this way, I can get paid that way. And you look like you was, at the very least, I think that's the smart thing to do about it. It's like going to a job and putting into a 401k. You can't leave the job and say, oh, well, I don't have any money. It's like, well, you didn't participate. Oh, but I put in all these years for you. You should do something for me now. But yeah, we gave you this opportunity to participate right here. Well, what about now? What about now? You had all these years to do it, and you didn't want to do it.
So I'm just seeing it differently from you guys, and that is that there's always a possibility to give someone something years later. I mean, if you want to be so cut and dry with Marvel, it's just good business sometimes just to keep people happy. You're not going to pay them the millions, because they're not. They gave it away. You're right, but just to put a contract and say, hey, go out and speak some good stuff about it.
You mean some hush money? Or not hush money, because you don't want them to stop talking. You want them to talk sweet. You mean honey money? Give them some honey money, right?
Call it what you want. I don't think there's a problem with that. But here's the thing. Hold on, I've been trying to get this one point across, is that if they had saved these characters, such as the Winter Soldier, right, and they were going to put it in a Image comic, right? There's no possibility. We have no idea whether it would have hit, right? with Marvel, because they're marketing, and now someone comes in later and say, hey, I want to be doing a movie and I want to use this particular character. Let's say the Flag Smashers, for example. This character or group, whatever it is, now turns out to be people like, hey, we really like these bad guys. We're super powered or whatever. And so from now on, whoever created the Flag Smashers or the amalgam of this group, this is going to be hot. This is going to be the new big bad villains of the Marvel universe. No
Well,
one knows. It hit fire. You could have created that in Image, and nobody would have even looked at it.
but it was a different time then. If you remember when that came out, it was a time where people were making their maximum amount of money at Marvel. They were like leaving, like Bendis was doing Image, and he went to Marvel to make their big money. They were starting out, getting a name, and then they would go off, they would go back or do Vertigo, and then they'd get to Marvel and blow up into this big thing. And that was a lot of people going to the X-Men, all that stuff. There's a lot of guys, which later they started to go back to Image and start creating stuff. But they were really making their bones doing, Marvel stuff. And that was the thing. Like you might do an Image book, they might try you out and you get a name. Oh no, and that's what I think Kirkman went against and said, no, I'm going to do my own stuff. But it's like when the money, that if you're not making Kirkman money and you're not making a hit for Image, you're not getting anything. You're just, hey, you got a series out. It was a cost of putting the thing out. You don't get any profits from it. So the next thing, oh, it's a buzz, but we didn't make that money. Hey, I can go do X-Men. And then they do X-Men. What didn't he do? Didn't he do X-Men too? You might get something for, what was that? Was he the guy who created Vulcan at X-Men? Let me see. So that's the thing. We can look at it and say they should do this, and they probably gave out a big lump sum because Marvel was struggling all those years, and when Disney bought them, there was a lump sum you could hear that they paid people. But then when you see the other stuff start coming out, you get the nickel and dime, allotment saying how much you made from this thing and that thing. Say 25 cents for this character, 25 cents for that character, that sort of thing. So it's kind of different where you can't just be, I guess you can be like that way they're acting, like saying, hey, I kind of feel upset that I don't get to participate in this thing, but can't all be winners, and there's other book creators before you that did their thing, and they didn't, flip out and cry afterwards and being like, how could you
cry privately? They didn't do it publicly.
Like, what is this? Is this him? Is he? Yeah, I'm trying to see. Yep, Deadly Genesis. So he did the Deadly Genesis where he created, who's that guy? Isn't that was the thing that sparked the what's the thing called? The zombies. He created Vulcan. So if Vulcan makes it into this X-Men stuff, he'll be a billionaire.
4%, I don't know about a billionaire.
But his thing was to go through old storylines and add another chapter to the stories we hadn't seen. That was his hook.
Public domain stuff?
Huh?
Is this public domain stuff?
No, X-Men, like Marvel stuff. He went back to Krakoa, and he had a whole bunch of X-Men that died in between the point where the new X-Men came. And Vulcan was one of the team that died. Look, like his team died, and he came back and hated Xavier and whatnot. But he goes, and I think he went to rule the Shire or something like that. He was he was supposedly the third brother of he came up with the third brother of Cyclops and Havoc. So that's kind of his shtick. And this one hit, but it's like not a character he created on his own. He should have created Captain America. He could have created Steve Rogers' brother. And there you go. He got the whole thing set up. His cool brother.
Probably that could have been done. Well, I think we've covered this topic pretty deep, deeper than we thought. But hey, the finale is that Brubaker, Marvel, hook him up, bro. Give him a chance. Just give the brother a chance.
I mean, hook me up, Marvel. I've been reading these books for years. I never got any money. Hook me up.
The resumes are in, bro. The resumes are in. Don't worry about it. So, Spirac.
Out.
Out. You cold, man.